What's up, guys?
It's your girl Nisha.
It's your boy
We're
Nard.
the Eminent Family. So today we're doing a reaction to Thomas Sowell, very well known. This one in particular is facts about slavery that they don't teach in school. Now I love history, so I'm ready to get into this video. You got anything you want to say, babe? Before we
I really do want to learn because, hey, what they didn't tell us in school. So I'm into it and I'm ready to watch it. So,
all right, let's get into it. Let's get into it. Here we go.
One of the many sad signs of our times is that people are not only playing the race card, they are playing the slavery card, which is supposedly the biggest trump of all. At the so-called Million Man March in Washington, poet Maya Angelou rang all the changes on slavery, at a rally billed as forward-looking and as being about black independence rather than white guilt. Meanwhile, best-selling author Dinesh D'Souza was being denounced in the media for having said that slavery was not a racist institution. First of all, anyone familiar with the history of slavery around the world knows that its origins go back thousands of years, and that slaves and slave owners were very often of the same race. Those who are ignorant of all this, or who think of slavery in the United States as if it were the only slavery, go ballistic when anyone tells them that this institution was not based on race. Blacks were not enslaved because they were black, but because they were available at the time. Whites enslaved other whites in Europe for centuries before the first black slave was brought to the Western Hemisphere. Only late in history were human beings even capable of crossing an ocean to get millions of other human beings of a different race.
Okay, first off, no, I haven't heard of that. All the races were enslaved, and have you heard that, babe?
Like I say, man, rather the Europeans was slaving other white folks, but when black folks got slaved, we was beat and hung. So, yeah, it's much of a different thing. So I'm gonna keep watching this video.
Yeah, I didn't hear much of other races getting enslaved. I did hear in particular in school it was a lot of black people. Think about it. It was a lot of black people, and more so Juneteenth became a holiday for black individuals, for freedom. So that was very impactful. So of course I didn't hear any other race getting enslaved. So yeah, that's crazy to me. Let's just get right into the video.
In the thousands of years before that, not only did Europeans enslave other Europeans, Asians enslaved other Asians, Africans enslaved other Africans, and the native peoples of the Western Hemisphere enslaved other native peoples of the Western Hemisphere. D'Souza was right. Slavery was not about race. The fact that his critics are ignorant of history is their problem. What was peculiar about the American situation was not just that slaves and slave owners were of different races, but that slavery contradicted the whole philosophy of freedom on which the society was founded. If all men were created equal, as the Declaration of Independence said, then blacks had to be depicted as less than men. While the antebellum South produced a huge volume of apologetic literature trying to justify slavery on racist grounds, no such justification was considered necessary in vast reaches of the world and over vast expanses of time. In most parts of the world, people saw nothing wrong with slavery. Strange as that seems to us today, 100 years ago, only Western civilization saw anything wrong with slavery, and 200 years ago, only a minority in the West thought it was wrong. Of all the tragic facts about the history of slavery, the most astonishing to an American today is that, although slavery was a worldwide institution for thousands of years, nowhere in the world was slavery a controversial issue prior to the 18th century. People of every race and color were enslaved, and enslaved others. White people were still being bought and sold as slaves in the Ottoman Empire, decades after American blacks were freed.
Okay.
Everyone.
So let me just take that back before I get back into the video. How you feeling?
Honestly, me personally, I think it was BS when they came down to the way the Americans, enslaved different. Bless you.
Excuse me.
And
Thank you.
they, to me, honestly, I can agree with saying that it was not a race thing. But what I disagree with on this video is they trying to feel like all slaves was equal just because other countries and other races had slaves of their own races, they race too. So nah, it wasn't like us. Being honest with you, I can't. My ancestors. It wasn't like what they went through. So I got more for y'all. I'm gonna continue to watch this video.
And like it was told in it, facts about slavery they don't teach you in school. You may not know. To each his own opinion. You may not know what other races went through. If they were in slavery. So yeah, it's a very deep topic to talk about. Let's just get back into the video. You ready?
Were freed. Everyone hated the idea of being a slave, but few had any qualms about enslaving others. Slavery was just not an issue, not even among intellectuals, much less among political leaders, until the 18th century, and then it was an issue only in Western civilization. Among those who turned against slavery in the 18th century were George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Patrick Henry, and other American leaders. You could research all of 18th century Africa or Asia or the Middle East without finding any comparable rejection of slavery there. But who is singled out for scathing criticism today? American leaders of the 18th century. Those who talk about slavery as if it were just the enslavement of blacks by whites ignore not only how widespread this institution was and how far back in history it went, they also ignore how recently slavery continued to exist outside of Western civilization. While slavery was destroyed in the West during the 19th century, the struggle to end slavery elsewhere continued well into the 20th century, and pockets of slavery still exist to this moment in Africa. But there is scarcely a peep about it from black leaders in America who thunder about slavery in the past. If slavery were the real issue, then slavery among flesh and blood human beings alive today would arouse far more outcry than past slavery among people who are long dead. The difference is that past slavery can be cashed in for political benefits today, while slavery in North Africa only distracts from these political goals. Worse yet, talking about slavery in Africa would undermine the whole picture of unique white guilt, requiring unending reparations. While the Western world was just as guilty as other civilizations when it came to enslaving people for thousands of years, it was unique only in finally deciding that the whole institution was immoral and should be ended. But this conclusion was by no means universal even in the Western world, however obvious it may seem to us today. Thousands of free blacks owned slaves in the antebellum South, and years after the Emancipation Proclamation in the United States, whites as well as blacks were still being bought and sold as slaves in North Africa and the Middle East. Anyone who wants reparations based on history will have to gerrymander history very carefully. Otherwise, practically everybody would owe reparations to practically everybody else.
So I'm gonna say this. I'm glad they didn't tell us this in school. Honestly, it is important to know this, don't get me wrong. But being in America is the reason why they did not teach this in school. You know what I'm saying?
Teach it, babe.
Because I feel like they didn't care. They don't want y'all to know, like, oh yeah, other people was being enslaved across these countries and other cities. And I'll be honest with you, I don't really care about what was going on in other countries. But, all I know was America. I feel like they took slavery to a whole nother level. You know what I'm saying? Because women was raped, women was beaten, men was beaten. Probably some men was raped,
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those you know, Caucasian folks was whites was being screwed by a lot of slaves too because that's what they like. They desired that. So, me personally, to say this to y'all, like whites being slaves to other whites, Africans and stuff like that, man. But hey, I can tell you this: all of it was wrong. But far as black people in America, far as slavery back then, 400 years ago, probably longer than that now. But they was they went through strict hell, man. Strictly hell. Through so much, and still to this day, they're going through so much, man. It's a little better, but come
I
on.
mean, some of the video he was like in 19. I don't know if the timeline is out here, like through the 1900s and the 20s. Slavery still went on, which is true. But I think in 1968, what 1868 or something. I don't know.
No, it was 1900. Slavery was ended.
Yeah.
Abraham ended slavery. That's when it was.
It should have been ended, but it continued in as of last year, 2021. Um, it was written. What's that guy name? The president of last year. Finally signed the bill. That would not be him. There's a bill. Somebody.
I
I don't know. I don't want to get his name wrong, but I'll write it probably in the description. But other than that, yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, it has been different things in this world a lot better than it used to be. Because honestly, I wouldn't know what I would do if I was in that situation. So I probably just cry every day.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, hey, man, I can't say, but I know they paid a way for a lot of us to be in a position, even to be on YouTube, anything, just being free and doing what we like
I'm
to
well
do.
privileged.
So, thank them and for all those people, thank the slaves that went through it,
And we have nothing
fight.
against any other race.
Right.
This video is just very based off opinions and reaction review.
I'm entitled to my opinion, so I mean, hey.
And you are?
Y'all can't really, fault me for it. Comments, bring them. Hey, it's just my opinion, dude. Like, educate me on this if I'm wrong. I'm open to it. I'm always open to listen.
I've been
I'm
out of
raised to
school for a
listen.
minute, so a little education would be great. Whatever you know that we don't know, it's good to share. And we love constructive criticism, so.
I mean, I don't care about that. I'm not gonna tell y'all I love that. I don't really care, but it's just like, cause that y'all entitled to y'all opinion as well. But anyways, guys, man, I appreciate you guys for watching the video, man. Growing with us, being with us, man. So,
Stay tuned for more, because we have more coming.
But guys, until the next video,
Peace.
peace.